So I've asked the question before, what happened to Disney? And I chronicled some of the history, some of their franchises and properties, went over some of what made them successful. And now I want to ask the question, what can Disney do? Is there anything they can do to turn the company around from where they were? Now, keep in mind, I'm not a businessman. I'm just somebody who spent the majority of their childhood into their teen years consuming a fair amount of Disney stuff. So I'm going to offer a bit of my perspective on things that I believe that Disney can do to sort of turn things around. The first thing they need to do is get back to more neutral entertainment. And when I say neutral, I mean don't start pushing identity politics of any sort. Don't start pushing philosophies of any sort that are divisive. Just go back to general family values. Go back to TGIF days where it didn't matter what the families looked like, there was still a family, a mom, a dad, and the kids. You need more sitcoms like that. ABC is a tremendous vehicle for sitcoms. They need to really take advantage of that. For years, they've kind of stagnated. I believe Last Man Standing was on ABC, but it wasn't. I wouldn't call Last Man Standing really a family sitcom other than it starred a family. It was more adult oriented in the way that it handled its jokes. You need stuff like Family Matters. You need stuff like Full House and Step by Step. And I know these are some of these are from other networks as well that aren't Disney, but the point still remains: you need traditional family-oriented content. You know, of a traditional family, because that's what the majority of people can relate to. You want to do an alternative style of family, that's fine, but you should market it as that and say that it's specifically for alternative lifestyles. But the primary thing that's going to bring people back is traditional families, traditional values. And many people at Disney don't share these values anymore. It's abundantly clear that they don't. So I don't see this happening, but it would be a surefire way to get people interested in their networks again and in their content again. So that's the first step, at least as far as sitcoms are concerned. As far as properties like Star Wars and Marvel and other things that they've acquired, they need to stay faithful to the source material. They need to not alter these heroes again to try to be more in line with identity politics, to be more in line with DEI and to pump up their ESG score. Those things don't matter. You need characters that people know, and you need a vehicle to introduce the ones that people don't know, but you need to introduce them faithfully. There's plenty of fans of most of these heroes. Marvel's got a huge back catalog. Star Wars has a big back catalog of both lore and characters that Disney has completely ignored and tried to start from scratch. That was a horrific mistake. I think the reason they did that was because they thought people might be too confused and too lost, but they could have strung it together easily, and instead they didn't. And I think that it's actually a blessing that Disney decided not to use that stuff, because I think they were going to try and change it. And you shouldn't try to change what isn't broken. That's just, no, don't do that. I'm okay with them creating their original content, but you have to honor the characters that people know and are established. You can't write them the way that they've been writing them. They've been writing them in ways that disrespect those characters and the legacy of those characters and what people have come to expect. I don't want your version of these characters. I want the characters. As a consumer, I know what I want when it comes to legacy content. So you have to give me that, and that's my expectation. If you don't give me that and you subvert that, you push me away and I say I don't want anything to do with you ever again. Plain and simple. And it's not just me, it's a broad audience of people. We know what these characters are, so we want them depicted as we've known them. If the people who are making it refuse to do that, then don't let them make content. Plain and simple. That should be the dividing line. So they need to do that. They also need to apologize for alienating families, alienating their core audience, and abandoning Walt Disney's vision. Again, I don't foresee them doing this, but if they did this, this would be a very smart move, especially if they were sincere about it. But I don't think, as long as Bob Iger's there, I don't think there is any sort of sincerity. What boggles my mind about Bob Iger was apparently for many years before he was CEO of all of Disney, he was CEO of CBS. And CBS or CBS, not CBS, ABC. I apologize. I've done so much stuff on TV today. All these names are blurring in my head. But ABC was a great network. It was the network that had TGIF. It had one Saturday morning and just general Saturday morning cartoons. Had some of the most famous soap operas next to CBS. It had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in its golden era. It had all of this content that was available on a network that you didn't even you could get it with rabbit ears. You didn't even need to pay a premium cable service. Now it's just news, occasional sports depending on the day, some soap operas in the day, and then all sorts of reality programming and just nonsense, just absolute nonsense. They need to go back to sitcoms, good sitcoms. And I think what happened with Disney was that they started taking sitcoms and putting them on the Disney Channel and producing them exclusively for the Disney Channel, when in reality they should have been producing the same type of sitcoms for ABC, like really good sitcoms for ABC, and having a lineup of them like they had in the past, like TGIF. I think they had brought TGIF back for a little bit in the early 2000s, but it didn't take off. But they need to do it again. And they need to advertise the heck out of it if they do. Or if they're going to do it on streaming services, they need to advertise these shows together, you know? Or just say that they're going to be available on streaming services. But just either way, they need to bring that back, because that's what people, I can guarantee you, that's what people want. And even younger generations will like it. They might be unsure at first, but I guarantee you they'll fall in love with it the same as old audiences did. You just have to make the characters relatable in the most basic sense. And Disney is afraid to do this. They're afraid to take risks on things that are unestablished. That's why instead of making something in the vein of, say, Family Matters, they'd rather just remake Family Matters, which is a completely stupid idea, because most likely it's not going to be the same characters. Maybe they'll make cameos. They'll do like what they did with Night Court, and that's been horribly mixed reception as far as I can tell. I mean, mostly I think people don't like it, but who knows? I'm not the complete audience. I know I don't like it because I think it's being handled somewhat poorly. But they definitely need to get back to that style of content and originality that they've just completely lost. They're so focused on the DEI and the wokeness aspect of it that they're not willing to branch out and actually see what values people hold and try to appeal to those general values. You don't even have to be specific. Just have a nuclear family and portray the nuclear family as a good thing. That's what people are longing for. And if Disney's not going to do it, then eventually somebody else is going to, and they're going to lose that entire market. So they absolutely need to cater to that audience, and they need to put their programming at the forefront with this new stuff and make sure that it's stuff that people want instead of what they want, and thinking that they know how to dictate to the people. That's one of their biggest problems. Another is with the theme parks. With the theme parks, they've already just stepped in it so many times. I mean, right now they are getting rid of Splash Mountain, and according to, I believe it's WDW Pro, had an interview with a former Imagineer who was at a party with another Imagineer who was talking about how joyful they were to start cutting up all the stuff from old Splash Mountain because it's apparently racist. It was one of the biggest screw you moves Disney has ever made to its customers. Splash Mountain has been around for 30 years. It is the least racist thing you could imagine. It is a log flume featuring characters from a movie that people have deemed controversial because it featured a guy who was a slave in the times of slavery, but he was the most wonderful depiction of a man you could have. He was a mentor to children. It was a beautiful movie, but Disney's been ashamed of it for years, and it's based on old slave folk tales, stuff that was good for kids of that time. And Disney's just been like, no, we don't, no, that's not good. Walt Disney fought for the guy who played Uncle Remus to have, I believe it was an Oscar, and he was nominated. I don't know if he won, but Disney fought tooth and nail. Disney himself fought for that. That tells you the kind of man Walt Disney was. They are such a joke of a company. They had a 100th anniversary reel for the Super Bowl. I saw some of it, and they had Disney at the end. They had a clip of something he said about dreams, and I shook my head because I said, I guarantee you. I left this on a comment on a video I was somewhere. I said, I guarantee you for this 100th anniversary, they are going to trot out Walt, and they're going to say, we're in line with his vision. No, they freaking aren't. They are not in line with Walt Disney's vision. They haven't been in line with Walt Disney's vision for arguably 20 or 30 years. They use Walt Disney when it's appropriate, they think, to use him. But they don't care about his vision. They don't care about families. They want to shape the future as they see it. And they think because they're Disney that they're the ones that have to do it. But the reality is that they're not the ones to do it. Society will decide which way it wants to go. Disney is taking sides in a culture war right now, and they're taking part in the losing side of that culture war. The side that is a minority of people pushing an ideology to become a majority that likely never will. That's the reality of where Disney stands right now. It's a terrible position to have. It's a terrible place to be. It's a losing proposition. They are losing millions of dollars. They are doing everything they can to try to convince people that Rome isn't burning, and they're failing at every aspect. How many times a day do you see stories coming out about how poorly Disney is doing? You might not see it in the mainstream media because they just are either under Disney themselves or not paying attention. But plenty of insiders, plenty of people within the company are coming out of the woodwork, sometimes anonymously, saying, yeah, things are really bad over here. Really bad. But they can right the ship if they just listen for once. And they won't. With Iger at the helm, he's going to do what he thinks is best for the company. And he's going to downplay his mistakes. He seems to be taking after Eisner in a lot of ways. And Eisner, the difference between him and Eisner was Eisner, as bad as he was, he made some actual smart decisions with the company, and he actually turned it around financially. Bob Iger just sent it to the abyss. It just feels like a dark abyss of a company. New Disney animated film comes out, could care less. The Mario movie is going to kill it. The Mario movie is going to destroy Disney's animated sector. Illumination, DreamWorks, both of those combined are making movies that people want to see that are hardly identity politics at all, as far as I can tell. But Disney's leaning into it. Strange Worlds was an absolute failure. Lightyear was an absolute failure. This new live-action Little Mermaid is going to be awful beyond belief because it's so wrapped up in identity politics just from the get-go. And they're trying to say, oh, no, it's not about identity politics. Yes, it is. You change the race of an established character. You did that because you wanted to virtue signal to all your buddies. You didn't care about what the audience wanted. You didn't care about the little black girl who grew up watching The Little Mermaid, knows what she looks like, idolized her, and then suddenly you're spitting in her mouth. You're spitting in the mouth of that little black girl who adored Ariel back in the 90s, who grew up and has kids and wanted to share that legacy. You're insulting her. Congrats, Disney. You screwed up. But they can right that ship. And if they don't right the ship, then there's rumors that they're going to be sold off. There's rumors that different companies will buy them. But they're not in good shape. They'll end up in Warner shape very soon here. And Warner's not in good positions, even with the Discovery merger. They'll end up in Warner shape very soon. They've been able to stay above water. But other companies are realizing that you need to back off at least a little bit if you want to actually make money, because that's the goal of your company, is to make money through your media and produce things that people want to see. But they think people want to see this political garbage, this ideological garbage. They don't want to see that. There is a very, very small subsect of people who want that content. If you want to cater to those people, create a space for those people. But for the general public at large, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. They just want stuff that is neutral, that is creative within its own framework. It doesn't even hardly allude to the real world. And if it does allude to the real world, you have to do it accurately. But they're not willing to do that as a company. It used to be the top family entertainment company in the world. And by volume, I think they still are. But at the end of the day, the company is going under. It might not disappear today or tomorrow or even the day after, but it is in sharp decline, and it is worrying them. There's an internal power struggle within the company. It's off the rails. The mouse is out of the hole, so to speak. That's another thing, is they're trying to sort of kind of get back into Mickey Mouse, but they're not incredibly dedicated to it. There's a new Illusion game, which admittedly looks good, but I've already sworn that I will not give Disney a cent until they recant their nonsense. I'm not going to buy anything from them. Plain and simple, I'm not going to give them money. I know they don't care about my boycott. It's not about whether or not it affects them. It's a principle thing for me. On principle, I won't buy their stuff. Because on principle, they have said that my values don't matter. They have said that my way of life doesn't matter. My politics, my whatever. They shouldn't have cared what my politics were. They just should have wanted to entertain a paying customer. But instead, they've chosen sides in a culture where they had no business being in. They took an objective side, and now they're paying the price for it because, as it turns out, that side isn't the majority. So any hope that they have of righting this ship is going to take drastic restructuring. I really think it's not just Bob Iger. A lot of people want to say that it's Bob Iger, CEO of Disney. It's not just him. It's an entire board full of people that also align with his principles and his views. Those people need to either willing to take a step back ideologically or leave the company. They need to understand that the company was founded by Walter Elias Disney. He had a clear outline for the future, way beyond him. And they need to do their best to follow that because it involves kids and families and some other audiences in between, but they're not the majority focus. The majority focus is family and kids. And if they can't get back to that and to those guiding principles, those general moral principles, they're going to lose it all. So, do I hope that they turn things around? Do I hope they can? In some ways, yes. It would be nice to get back to the glory days of a nice entertainment company like that. But at the end of the day, it all depends on their own way of approaching how they deliver their media to an audience. If they can't deliver the media in a way that people receive with positivity, then they're going to continue to do it wrong. They're going to continue to do it wrong. They're going to continue to lose money. And there's no way around that. And they know there's no way around that, but they are still committed to this cause of wokeness. They are dead set on it. Every news piece that comes out interviewing these people, they always downplay it. They say, "Oh, well, we've learned that we need to spread these messages, but we also need to entertain along the way." Now, you can rarely ever do both. Take it from somebody who is a Christian and has seen plenty of Christian movies and television. It's very hard to do both. Usually the message overrides the entertainment. It's rarely ever can you have a message and be entertaining. There are some times where it can happen because a story is built around a message and the message is built in. But if it's an issue of alternative lifestyles or, a minority way of living, then the majority is going to reject that because it's like, that's not me. That's not anybody I know. So they're not going to accept that. And you have to accept that they are not the majority. And if you're going to make that, understand that that is for that specific audience. It's not going to be for everybody. So you're not going to see those return on investments that you're hoping for, because general people are going to reject that wholesale, and they are. And you can't turn around and call them racist, sexist, homophobic, whatever you want to call them. You can't call them that because they don't relate with the content. They just don't. Whether they agree with those things or not, they just don't relate with the content. And that's what they're telling you. They're not telling you they hate anybody. They're telling you they don't relate with the content. Plain and simple. There's nothing for them, and you've told them repeatedly there's nothing for them, so they say, okay, well, there's nothing for me, I guess I'll go somewhere else. And then they go to the competition, and the competition rakes in the dough. So their choice is clear. Either cater to a minority of people and see low returns and continue to shrink the company, or cater to the majority and keep things up and continue to build and last another 100 years. Because I'm going to tell you this, they will not last 100 more years with this philosophy. They as a company will not last even close. They won't even last 50 years with this ideology. They'll be lucky to last 15 to 20. Because it is so dated, it is so issue of our era. Eventually, society's going to move on from this fixation, this obsession it has with identity politics. It's going to move on and try to find something with more substance and deeper overall meaning, like it used to. It can't be sustained by trying to push this as a majority when it's not, and it's not gaining traction. And they're learning that lesson. As time continues to tick away, they continue to waste time investing in this stuff, and they're not seeing the returns. But they can turn the ship around at any time. Again, like I said, it wouldn't take much. I outlined a couple of things, a couple of statements they can make, and a clear course ahead. But that is the problem, is there is no clear course ahead. There is no direction. They are completely rudderless. They keep throwing stuff at the wall, stuff that's been in the pipe, stuff that's ideologically sound with the ideology that they've taken up in a culture war. That stuff's all in the pipe, and they're shoving that stuff out in the hopes that somebody will be willing to see it. But people aren't. Not enough people are for it to make a return. Doesn't mean there's zero interest. There's always a market for something. There's a sucker born every minute. But the reality is, it's not enough to sustain the business model that they have. And they're realizing that, and they're panicking. They're absolutely panicking. Anyways, that's all I've got for right now, folks. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Super Koopa. I will see you guys next time. God bless. Have a good one. Peace.